Hello, and welcome to Bullish Video Games. Today I'm going to be playing What Remains of Edith Finch. I had played this game years ago. I wish I could remember what year so I knew how old I was. But I played it again recently and sort of viewed it through a different lens. Mostly because I've gotten older now, I just passed 30. And it really got me thinking about my own family, how we relate to each other, the stories we tell each other and other people, and just how this game as a whole is a really good allegory for generational trauma. Not to say that I've had that extreme of circumstances in my own family, however, given the amount of theories I've seen on YouTube about this game, that is the theory I agree with most. So, nothing I have to say is really new, however, they are just thoughts and opinions that I have noticed while playing the game again that I would like to share with you guys. So with that, here we go.
A lot of this isn't going to make sense to you, and I'm sorry about that. I'm just going to start at the beginning, with the house.
And for anyone who hasn't played this game yet, there is a lot of commentary, so if I'm not speaking for periods of time, it is because I'm anticipating that commentary. For instance,
Someone had put up a chain link fence, but it looked like I wasn't the first person to hop it. My brother Milton disappeared when I was 4. It was like the house just swallowed him up.
and I really like all the little details. No idea if that's a real phone number, but I do like all the little details about how old he was, his size, his race, etc. features. This, from what I've been seeing in comments, is foxglove, which is highly poisonous, and someone was saying that it was sort of a good analogy for how the stories they tell each other that gets passed down sort of
I lived
spreads.
here until I was 11, but I wasn't allowed inside half the rooms.
And so in that way, the trauma that the family sort of suffers through not only is contained within the house, but is also spread outward and infecting the environment around them.
Inside the mailbox were bills from 7 years ago, marked urgent, open immediately.
Oh, I just noticed the letters are reflective on the inside of the mailbox. That's cool. Cool detail.
I hadn't been back since my brother Lewis's funeral. In her will, my mother left me a key, but didn't tell me what it unlocked. Maybe she thought I'd know. Or she thought that the mystery would be enough to bring me back.
That is a detail I'm going to revisit. For those of you who have not watched this, I'm going to try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. However, it is difficult given how much detail there is. Most of you watching will probably piece it together. More flyers there.
The truth is, even after I inherited the house, I never thought I'd come back to it. But now I had questions about my family that only the house knew the answers to.
There's more foxglove. Can't really get away from it. At least not out here.
The woods around the house have always been uncomfortably silent. As if they're about to say something, but never do. The house was exactly like I remembered it, the way I'd been dreaming about it.
I would not trust that. Like, those little rooms up there are basically held together on stilts. But real quick before we go inside. Okay, we'll be seeing him again later.
No one had driven this way in a long time, but I saw a few hoof prints.
There we go. I just wanted to show you how you could get the achievement. I was worried that I would have to replay the game again, but luckily you just have to walk on both ways to get to the house. And with that said, none of the achievements in this game are technically missable, because assuming you at least play through once and you get all of the characters unlocked that you need to, you can then go character by character and then try again for the achievements. But as we play this, I'm going to show you all of the possible dialogue that I have found. If I am missing anything, please make sure to share it in the comments for the rest of us.
I asked Edie once about the dragon in the pond. She said it had killed her husband. I was 6. It seemed like an odd joke to me even then.
It is weirdly beautiful, but it's like treacherous. Like, as a kid, I would have loved to, you know, climb all the way to the top room up there, but as an adult, I'm like, fuck no.
As a child, the house made me uncomfortable in a way I couldn't put into words.
You know, much less if I had my own kids wanting them to climb all the way up there. Oh.
Now, as a 17-year-old, I knew exactly what those words were. I was afraid of the house.
I can see why. Yeah, like, even if those were buried 20 feet into the earth, I would not trust it. Like, you would just take one strong windstorm, or termites, or rot, or whatever, and that whole structure is just falling off.
I hoped the key might unlock the front door. It didn't. Looking in, I felt like the house itself had been waiting for me.
I do like how the house has its own sort of personality, and that in itself is sort of made to be a character. I find that not a lot of games do that, and I wish more of them did.
The house felt like it had always been here. Even the swing set was older than my mother. Crawling through the doggy door used to be a lot easier when I was 11.
So before we go into the house, I just want to explain what this is. This is one of the peepholes that Edie Sr. had drilled into the doors. And our main character, Edith, here will kind of explain what happens. But basically, this being here implies that she was working on another one. But I'm not really sure for which door, because if I'm not mistaken, all of the doors in the house already have peepholes. So I don't know if this is just an extra she was working on, but if it is, it definitely implies the obsession that Edie Sr. had with her family just dying all around her.
The power had been turned off the night we left. For the first time in years, I felt like I was home.
2010, the last year we were here, when her brother Lewis died. And here you have her name, her two brothers, her mom, and great-grandma Edie. Jesus. Oh, that's cool.
But instead of a family, there were just memories of one.
So that's mom, us, great-grandma Edie, and brother Lewis, older brother Lewis. I guess they're both older, technically. And then here, like she mentioned, her brother Lewis died young. They're all pretty young. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm really starting to appreciate silence more in video games. One, it makes it a lot creepier because we've sort of been conditioned to always expect music when we play games and watch movies. And so when there's nothing and there's just quiet, you get this anticipatory feeling that something bad is about to happen.
Like how after Lewis started working at the cannery, we all got sick of eating salmon. Except our cat, Molly.
That is a lot of tuna. Oh. Wonder if that's a real recipe.
Or how only one restaurant would deliver to our house, so we had Chinese a lot.
And something else I wondered too when I was playing this again is like, they have shelves, but they're not being used. I mean, there's just books and stuff everywhere. It's sort of chaotically organized, but I'm not sure if that's because this was an effect of her mom and her moving out of the house. That's an old-ass stove, wow. And before I forget, a lot of the books, of course, do repeat because, you know, trying to ask animators to come up with individual books, especially as many of this, is a lot of work. However, as we go through the house, I'm just going to point out some of the differences we see that showcase each character's unique personality. Right now, since we're in the kitchen, the majority of these are just cookbooks. But let's move on.
The table was still a wreck from the night we left. It was like a bomb had gone off, killing everyone but sparing the furniture.
So this quote I really, really like, and I wish more people had kind of pointed out. But the reason I like it so much is because I feel it's really analogous to the whole situation where it's sort of telling us that the only thing that matters is the evidence left behind and not necessarily the people that the situation affected. And if that doesn't make sense, it will as we go through the game.
My mom was the only one of us who could imagine Great-Grandma Edie living in a nursing home. Nothing in the house looked abnormal. There was just too much of it, like a smile with too many teeth. Even the fireplace had a story. Edie told me the bricks came from the original house, after it sank.
And here you can see a note, Don Finch. Evidence of them trying to move out. More pictures, more books. That, I would not trust that. I would be so paranoid that it would fall off the wall, right? Or that, like, you would lean too hard and the whole bookshelf would just come down after you. I mean, it looks cool, but I don't trust it.
Mom always told me to stay out of the basement, so I wasn't too surprised when the key didn't fit. Great-Grandpa Sven built a music box for Barbara, along with the rest of the house.
A lot of people point out the bugs, and something I've never been able to figure out is who actually did start collecting the bugs. Because as we go through the stories, you'll see the house at different periods of time. And of course, it doesn't have all this stuff inside it yet. So I am wondering which character actually collected all the bugs. Because I've never been able to figure that out. See, and even like little details like this, where they have all the mail for different people, but there's nothing for Milton because he's gone.
My mom wasn't much of an optimist, but she never stopped believing that my brother Milton was alive.
We will come back to him when it is time for his story, because I believe he's alive too, and I'll explain why later.
A lot of things got left behind in the whirlwind of that last night.
So here, this design here, like I was saying earlier, that is a peephole.
Edie told me once that every Finch who ever lived is buried somewhere in the library.
Metaphor pretty much for how the family members live on through the stories. Oh. Alright.
After Milton disappeared, Mom sealed up all the bedrooms. Then Edie retaliated and drilled peepholes.
So there we go. After her brother disappeared, her mother Dawn sealed all the holes you can see with the foam. But then Edie, wanting to essentially keep the memories alive, at least her version of keeping them alive, then put all these little peephole, I don't know what you call them, I guess decorations over the door so you could still look inside.
The last time I was in Edith Sr.'s room, I was 10 and she was painting my portrait.
So right there, her husband died when he was, let's see, 54, 49, so he didn't even make it to 50 yet. And then she lived to a pretty old age. I believe she was the longest surviving member of this entire story, which is insane to think about. but 93. And she died the same year that Lewis died, and they left. I will say, I really do like this artwork on the door. It might actually be something I end up doing for my own house. It adds so much personality to each room. Minus the sad stories, of course, but the actual artwork itself is pretty amazing.
My Grandpa Sam spent 7 years sharing a room with his dead brother, Calvin.
Don't worry, we'll get through all these rooms. You see here, Calvin, 50 to 61, he was only 11. This one I have thoughts on, but I'll wait till we come across his story to spell them out. Gregory, 76 to 77. If you look on the wiki page, barely 2 years old.
As a kid, I just assumed every house had peepholes and sealed rooms you weren't allowed inside of. Whenever people ask me about my family, the first thing they always want to know about is Barbara.
My Friend Bigfoot, starring Barbara Finch. There's her door, big Hollywood star.
Edie's father, Odin, built the original house.
The original house, yep, the one that sank in the ocean.
Barbara was a child star for 2 years, until America grew out of it.
'44 to '60, she was 16. And here I'm assuming this is Edie, potentially pregnant with either the twins or the youngest Walter, painting Barbara's door. Nice little details like that.
Mom must have locked the third floor stairs on the night we left.
I'd be paranoid that that thing would slam down and hit me on the head as I was going up or down.
Molly always seemed like a girl I could imagine being friends with, if she hadn't died in 1947.
Yeah, so if you haven't noticed already, there's a lot of death in this family. A lot of death. Molly, 1937 to 47. Her door is just sort of a princess castle with some squirrel characters on it.
I spent a lot of time playing in Great Uncle Walter's room. I think my mom sometimes regretted not sealing it up.
To be fair, I'd play in this room too. This is an awesome paint job. Really makes you feel like you're underwater, assuming you don't have a fear of like the ocean or something. And assuming this is Edie who painted it, she specifically painted their original sunken house.
Lewis told me there were secret passages, but I never believed him. Turns out, my mom was really good at keeping secrets. Now it was time to find out what my mom had been afraid of. From the paintings on the wall, it was clear my brother Milton had been here before me.
So 2 things I'd like to talk about real quick. One, the key that her mom specifically left her locked the padlock that allows her to now explore the house and essentially get into all the rooms that she wanted her kept out of previously. And as we go through the story, we find out that the mom really, over time, did not like, and to a point even resented, all of these stories and memorials that great-grandma Edie was doing. Yet, when her mom passed, her mom Dawn, she left her the key to find out everything. So it's almost as if her mom, in a way, still couldn't escape it, even though she tried.
Reading this, maybe it sounds like I had a plan, but I had no idea what was behind that door. Just like I had no idea where all this was gonna lead.
This would be a really fun house to traverse as a kid, but I have questions about the structural integrity of it all.
I grew up looking at Molly's room through the peephole. Being inside for the first time, I felt like I'd stepped behind a painting. Molly's gerbil had a tiny bedroom with its own even tinier gerbil cage.
That's adorable. So this is probably the least personified room we're going to see in terms of personality, because Molly, yes, very
I got
young.
the sense Edie had spent a lot of time here before my mom sealed the doors.
Because yes, some girls, a lot of young girls, you know, they're into princess stuff and they like pink. Really, at least when I look at this room, the only thing we can tell is that she spent a lot of time fantasizing, which would make sense given what we're about to see. The only thing I can't quite square is her table, because if you look at it, this is a layout of the house where you have her room, her sister Barbara's room, the unnamed room, which we were just in, which was Walter's, implying that none of the boys were born yet, because across from Edie and Sven was the boys Calvin and Sam's room, and they're not labeled yet either. So I'm not sure if Edie painted this just sort of to tell them, like, tell her, hey, like, this is kind of where you are, or as a nod to the player, but I just thought it was interesting. And then here, 1947, when she died. Does that say something in wetland? Call of the wild, monsters of the deep. What does that say? Something creature? I can't read it. Another princess-themed clock. In here, too, I can't tell if Molly drew this or if Edie drew it. But you have Molly here at the bottom of, assumedly, the Finch house, or maybe just her own castle, and the great dragon that then killed her dad. So, maybe it was Molly, like a young Molly, processing what happened, although I can't remember when Sven actually died. But we're going to see a bunch of these shrines throughout the house. A lot of these portraits that great-grandma Edie painted to memorialize them. These little objects here to represent their final moments. But let's begin.
December 13th, 1947. Dear Diary, I'll be gone soon, but I wanted to tell somebody about what's gonna happen. It started when Mom sent me to bed without dinner. I woke up and I was starving, so I looked around for something to eat. The gerbil food was dry, but I didn't mind it. My Halloween candy was all gone. Mom, can I come out now?
Sweetheart, it's late. Go to sleep.
So Molly's story, from all the theories I've seen, and one I agree with, is essentially a story of neglect, and that she was sent to bed without dinner, and she is now, as we are, rummaging around her room for anything she can eat. And if you've ever have kids or nieces or nephews or just been around kids, they eat everything they can get their hands on because they don't necessarily understand the idea of edible yet.
I kept eating and eating.
Ugh.
I ate a lot of things that night.
This specifically, a lot of people point to, one, as mistletoe. It is technically not mistletoe, it is holly. Mistletoe has white berries, holly has red, and these very distinctive pointy leaves. Just a minor correction. And a lot of people will point to this as the thing that ultimately poisons her. I tried looking online at specific cases where holly actually could kill a young kid, and I couldn't find any. But at the very least, it would cause a lot of gastrointestinal distress, vomiting, diarrhea, stuff like that. It would definitely not make her feel good. However, we also just swallowed an entire tube of toothpaste, which I'm surprised more people don't point out, because if you read the wiki page, it specifically lists fluoridated toothpaste, which is highly toxic, especially to a young child. And before any of you watching can think like, oh, why would a kid eat an entire tube of toothpaste? Again, kids will eat anything and everything they can because they don't really understand the concept of edible, much
Then
less
I heard
poisonous.
chirping outside my window. I thought about eating Christopher, but I held back.
Yeah, don't eat your friend. It's not nice.
It was a barn swallow going back to her nest. I reached out for her. And suddenly, I was a cat. I tried to be quiet, but the bird was really scared.
See here, it's Christmas time. A lot less furniture, a lot less books.
Mom and Dad didn't even look at me.
I do think it's a little strange how you can tell that they aren't animated to move. They're basically just statues. It would be kind of interesting if they were at least animated to look like they were talking to each other.
The babies were all gone.
No eggs for us. And this is where the garage was. So they haven't even built the garage at this point. Come here.
I jumped and I almost got her. I could tell she was getting really tired. Now I was up in the big tree. I promised Dad I wouldn't climb it anymore. All I cared about was eating that mama bird.
Yep, see, and there's the swing already set up. Don't worry, we'll get back to that later.
I gobbled her up. And suddenly, I was an owl. First, all I heard was the wind. Then I heard little teeth nibbling in the grass.
This segment is where you can get another achievement, and what I strongly recommend is for you to wait for the prompt.
Rabbits.
See, just like that. Get a little closer, and...
I imagined his face looking up and seeing mine through my talons. I swallowed him up, and I didn't chew one bit. Then I flew off to find something bigger. A mama rabbit. She was almost too big to carry. I started choking, but I couldn't stop eating. And suddenly, I was a shark.
Yeah, this is very much a WTF moment for a lot of people. This to me very much implies that she is having a fever dream given all the toxic stuff she just ingested.
I rolled off a cliff and into the ocean. Now, I was hungrier than ever.
Yeah, given her imagination, her propensity towards fantastical ideas, it's not surprising that her dreams consist of being different animals.
I wanted fat, juicy seeds. I tore off her flipper, and it tasted really good. On tight. And I was so hungry, I jumped out of the water. When I opened my eyes, everything had changed. Now I was a monster, and I smelled people everywhere. I was big, but I moved real quiet.
Oh, so wriggly.
I wanted to stop, but also I didn't.
So here's another achievement we're about to get. We need to wait for him to finish singing. And yes, he will go through all of the verses. I'm honestly more surprised he can remember all the lyrics given how smashed he is. I do like how the words scroll. They're still being faithful to the art style. There we go. Dinner and a show.
After the last passenger, I was still hungry. And across the water, I smelled something new. Something I had to have, so I swam towards it.
Can't really tell where we are.
I slithered onto the sand, and the good smell went into an old pipe.
I mean, I know where we are. Also, I just want to point out, what kind of toilet do you have where you just see a straight shot down into the sewer? But anyway, I just thought that was funny.
I got closer and closer.
We have now become the monster under the children's bed.
All my stomach started growling. And suddenly, I was me again. I held my breath for a long time, but I couldn't hear anything. I think it's waiting for me to fall asleep. But it's not going to wait much longer. It needs to feed, and we both know I will be delicious.
I'm not sure if I believed all of that, but I'm sure Edie would have.
Yep. Given all the things, the books she probably read, like I mentioned...
I can't describe it, but I felt like some part of Molly was still here.
That most likely contributed to her fever dream. And here we have little motifs of what she turned into. Can't go in the bathroom though. But yeah, my theory, given that when everything's happened, I definitely agree it was a case of neglect. However, I think it was more the toothpaste that poisoned her than it was the holly berries. Granted, she also ate a dirty carrot from her dripple bowl, and we see little droppings there, which obviously is very unsanitary. So it's sort of like everything combined, and in her weakened state of her not having any food probably did not help her fight off whatever kind of infection sickness she contracted. And then the comment about Edie spending a lot of time here after Molly died makes a lot of sense, given that this was her first child. It most definitely was her fault that she did not check on her and make sure that she wasn't going to do anything rash. But, you know, situation is being what it is. It does make sense that Edie would want to then disappear into a story of how Molly was consumed by a sea creature then admit she contributed to her daughter's death. But I digress. Let's move on.
This will be obvious later, but my mom never told me any of these stories. Edie would have, but Mom didn't like bringing up the past. Though, when we adopted a stray kitten, she was the one who named it Molly.
It is quite the view. Yeah, and that comment about her mom then naming their new cat Molly, again, kind of shows that her mom, as much as she wanted to get away from it, couldn't.
I spent a lot of time in Great-Grandma Edie's room. Her room was like a museum.
Odin. So this would have been great-great-grandpa, who died trying to sail his entire house over the sea.
For 500 years, the Finches have been famous throughout Norway for their fortune. And misfortune. Odin Finch buries the latest victims of the family curse, his wife Ingeborg and their newborn son, Johan. On January 7th, 1937, he set sail with his family and his house, hoping to leave the curse behind. But 40-foot waves off the coast of Washington send the house and Odin to the bottom of the sea.
I like how you can see he's on top of the house trying to wrangle it, like that's going to do anything.
Odin's daughter Edie, with husband Sven and baby Molly, step ashore on their new home, Orcas Island. Odin Finch is the first to be buried in the new family cemetery. His daughter Edie is already dreaming of a new Finch house. Whatever's wrong with this family, it goes back a long ways.
It's another great analogy because they are finding out now that trauma can be passed down genetically through multiple generations. I forget what the iteration is, but it's at least 3 to 4 times. If your ancestor suffered something, either like a traumatic event or they had some kind of mental illness, it can still be felt 3 or 4 generations later in your family line. And even if you look here, this is a detail that I had missed the first time I played it. You see here that he wrote books, presumably on deaths. So even before great-grandma Edie, great-great-grandfather Odin seemed to have this obsession with death already that then just sort of propagated throughout the family line. I do like that painting. But yeah, and a lot of these stories here that we see on Edie's shelf are very much fantasy fiction. Tales to tell when you're bored, or just when you need an escape. And see here, she had already started making a little doily cover for Lewis. You see all the little baby handprints of the family members that had passed before. Little remnants of her children. I'm going to assume that's her, Sven, and then baby Molly. Let's see here, we have Molly first, then Barbara, the twins, Calvin and Sam, Walter. So those are her 5 kids. And then Sam had Dawn, Gus, and Gregory. And then Dawn had Lewis, Milton, and now Edith, which is us.
Lewis died a week before we left, but Edie had already started to memorialize him. Edie knit me a new pair of gloves every year, just in time to replace the old ones.
See here all of Edie's pets, and even for her pets, she makes little memorials of their death. Hey, Bob. Burpee. This one doesn't have a name. Derpy. I do like all the birds' names, they're pretty funny. Is that another Bob? It is. So she had a lizard and a frog named Bob. Cool little painting there of the, I'm assuming, finches escaping the canvas.
Edie gave a big interview about a mole man living under the Finch house. My mom was furious.
That's not going to make a lot of sense now, but it will later on.
I hadn't thought of myself as Edith Jr. for a long, long time.
I want to know what's on the tape titled Random Junk. The illusion of life.
One summer, they evacuated the island, but Edie refused to go. For a few weeks, she was a celebrity.
This is another piece of evidence that potentially points to her attention-seeking and why she is so quick to memorialize and make up stories, because it's not necessarily about honoring the dead, but more about the attention it will bring you for doing so. And this is something else too that I didn't notice. You have a binder called Barber Concepts and another binder called Molly Concepts. And then another binder called Mural Sketches. Not sure if it just means that these were for their doors or if these were for their actual memorials and little shrines that she then set up. Here we have a little carving in the wall, or maybe it's just paint. It says, built 1937 Sven Finch. Someone pointed out, too, that traditionally women typically take the husband's last name, but in every instance of this family tree, the husbands have always taken the wives' names, as if the name Finch is a sort of virus that they can't get rid of. And so then even if you marry into the family, you are now infected with the family curse. I thought maybe that, you know, she just kept the name Finch because Sven died. But if that were true, he would have signed his name Sven Hofstad because that was his last name. But he didn't. He signed it Finch.
When Edie told people Sven was killed by a dragon, she could also have said he was building a dragon-shaped slide that collapsed. She could have, but she didn't.
I really wish we would have gotten a little scene of him and how he died. I think it would have been interesting, especially if we were playing as Edie. I did see in the wiki page that there was intention to have her own scene, but then they just ran out of time and couldn't develop it. But see, even in the paper, it says dragon kills Finch. Tragedy strikes Finch family. So even the papers and the local news sort of memorialize him in this fantastical way where they imply that he was killed by this supernatural creature instead of simply that he was crushed during a construction project, because that's a lot less gratifying. I can't even read that. Well, I know it's on the door.
Even in her 90s, sometimes Edie seemed a lot younger than my mother.
Yeah, I think that's it. Time to move on.
The only trace Grandpa Sam's first wife Kay left on the house was the pink bathroom.
Yep.
It was a pretty big trace.
I'd say so. This kind of reminds me of my cousin's house growing up. They had, it was like this harvest color shag carpet in their living room. It was like browns and oranges and dark yellows and stuff. It's kind of interesting to run your hands through. So pink. But this is something that I don't quite understand why she decided to put the peephole here. Because in every other situation, the peephole is over their bedrooms, except for here. And I don't want to spoil it yet in case you haven't watched it, so I will just save that commentary for later.
There's a secret in this bathroom. It's in the last place you would look. It isn't in the cupboard. It's hidden in this book.
I will say that is very cool.
Sven gave Sam an old camera he'd refurbished. He never put it down.
It really points to the ingenuity of the entire family that they can essentially build all of this and create little... Oop, didn't mean to do that. And create these little projects inside of a project. Turn it into a puzzle and stuff. And not only create these sort of puzzle spaces within the house, but then the children freely use it. So in case you forgot, Sam would be Edith's grandfather. So that's him taking the picture. And then on the left there, Calvin Finch, that's his twin brother who died. But Sam got really into photography. Oh, see, he even took the picture of the swing, which will become relevant very, very soon. Yeah, another Milton graffiti there. This right here, this always makes me feel incredibly sad. Because, well, one, they were twins, so they were probably very close, but two, he kept going, or someone made him keep going after his brother clearly died. Right? And it's just in this simple visual.
I knew Grandpa Sam had a twin. And that he never talked about him.
I mean, I don't think I would either. And here we have another calendar date, 1961. So we have Calvin here, very much into sci-fi, fantasy, robots, space. It is a really cool room. Yep, a bunch of books about space travel.
I guess my grandpa didn't like history any more than my mom did.
And the helmet he never took off.
How I Want to Remember My Brother by Sam Finch. The thing I remember is that when he made up his mind, that was it. My brother said he'd die before he ate another mushroom, and he did.
So there's our brother. We're playing as
At
Calvin, and
Barbara's
there's our brother.
funeral, we swore we'd never be afraid again. And he wasn't. I think Calvin always wanted to fly.
Sam! Calvin! Dinner's ready!
Coming!
But that day, he finally made up his mind to do it. I told him going around was impossible. Maybe if I hadn't said that,
Calvin! I'm not gonna tell you again!
maybe if the wind hadn't picked up, then maybe he'd still be here. But I doubt it. I think he'd already made up his mind. That's what I want to remember about my brother. The day he made up his mind to fly. And he did.
Calvin's story felt strangely familiar. When I was younger, I remember trying to do the exact same thing.
What's always so fascinating to me about that scene in particular is that I can still feel the bodily sensations when you have the animation of him swinging. Like, I can still feel myself as if I'm on a swing, which is quite incredible and a testament to what your body remembers. But there is another achievement here, and in order to get it, we need to do this again. And so when we do, I just want you to pay attention to the surroundings, like where we are. Because a lot of people have already pointed this out, but can I not do it again? Oh yeah, I guess I have to wait to the end to replay it. I thought we could just do it again, but I guess not. But as a lot of people have pointed out, look at where the swing is in relation to the surroundings, and the fact
After
that
the
when
funeral, Edie roped off Calvin's half of the room.
and the fact that when you're swinging, you are literally over the edge of the cliff. So my theory is that he actually did manage to swing around, because if you look at the swing and you look at the chains, it does look like it's looped around. Now, that could just be my imagination and wishful thinking, but I think he actually did manage to loop around, but then of course the swing jerked, and because of that he lost his grip and it just went straight over the edge of the cliff.
Mom said Grandpa Sam enlisted at 18 and never set foot in the room again.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't either. Your grandma, essentially, instead of letting, the past be the past, she memorialized the essence of your dead brother that you then had to live with for 7 years. Cobra Battalion Bravo Company achievement to Sam Finch for obtaining 120% deportment grade. Not sure what deportment means, but alright. And I can't quite read what that says. Then we have captured secret lives of war photographers. So it's possible that Sam, when he enlisted, he became a combat camera guy, which, depending on what's going on when you get deployed, you are actually sent out to the battlefield to literally take pictures. It is an actual job you can have. So quite dangerous in and of itself. I mean, unless you just happen to get stationed ashore and, are doing nothing more than like publicity photos, but I guess it all just depends. You can see you have them there at Odin Finch National Park. So Odin Finch not only tried to take his entire house from Norway to the United States, but then also had a national park named after him. So not sure if that's like the family's doing or if it was just donation or what. See, and you have that picture there of them both getting their height measured. Calvin, of course, never takes that helmet off. I'll show you the achievement toast, but there is an achievement called Loop-de-Loop for playing Calvin's sequence again. I thought I could do it in-game, but I guess I can't, so I gotta wait until I complete the game and just choose his story again. Oh, I remember I was going to say, so I can't show you because we can't pick up the note again, but if you listen to the words that Sam writes about his brother, he says specifically how I want to remember my brother. Not what happened, but how I want to remember. And essentially paints him as this picture of a guy who was very brave and always set his mind to do whatever he wanted to do, to the point where he just decided to fly. Specifically that word, decided to fly. Not fell, off a cliff, because that is, even if true, very unfortunate and sad. So deciding to fly just sounds a lot better and is much easier to remember. But time to move on. I really want to know how viable this kind of structure is, and if you could actually build those mechanisms into a house.
The passages were a pretty tight fit. They'd obviously been built for smaller hands and bellies.
Little shortcut there if we want to come back. And here, Barbara Finch, child star. Another Milton graffiti.
Growing up, I always thought of Barbara as a child star.
So we have a movie poster here. There's that lunchbox, the film reel, a doll, some accolades, assuming fan mail, a Bigfoot mask, and I think maybe a decorative plate. So she got pretty famous from doing this, but she only did it for 2 years, and then I guess after that just sort of floundered in obscurity. Oh, and she got to keep the cardboard cutout.
I never thought about how hard it must have been for her afterwards.
So here's another great showcase of personality where you look at the wall, you look at the books. Very much a teenager's room, right, with all the music. The posters, stuff like that. The artsy pictures, very much into fashion. Oh yeah, and then a sketch of Rick, which was her boyfriend at the time. But looking at all the books here, very much theater and acting. And then, of course, all these playbills here. I'm not huge into theater, so I'm not sure if these are references to anything. They could just be generic playbill art. And then we have here her uniform, Penelope's Diner, where she worked. And then, I don't know if that's supposed to be a cake or maybe like a giant birthday cookie, but then she died on her birthday, which is very unfortunate as well. It's all unfortunate. I kind of want to know who this is, who she just has a picture of a guy in a Speedo. Barb Street, stole a sign, classic teenager shenanigans. All this crawling around probably isn't good for me. And then her memorial here.
Of all the stories people wrote about Barbara's death, I'm surprised Edie saved this one.
Old Jack here with another ghastly tale inspired by America's most unfortunate family. I'm calling it The Surprise Ending of Barbara Finch. As a child star, Barbara was famous for her scream. Now at 16, she was all washed up. A has-been. But in a lucky break, she'd been asked to perform her signature scream at a local convention for monster movie fans. It was just the boost her career needed. Unfortunately, her scream hadn't aged well.
Getting better. I think you just need the right motivation.
Her biggest fan and current boyfriend, Rick, was about to demonstrate when...
Now that was a great scream.
It was Barbara's father, Sven. He'd slipped into a table saw and had to be rushed to the emergency room. So Barbara got stuck babysitting her youngest brother, Walter. Her convention comeback was cancelled.
Okay, I'm hearing frustration, but I'm not hearing terror. What if I tried...
A gang of hoodlums in Halloween masks have been terrorizing Orcas Island tonight. Police are urging residents to...
That came from the basement.
You're right! Also, I loved your delivery on that. Why is your basement door locked?
Because my dad likes making puzzles and secret passages. There's a key hidden in the music box. The secret is to keep winding and winding until finally the key pops out.
Thanks, babe. I'll be back in a sec.
20 minutes later, Rick hadn't returned. So Barbara went to look for him, right on cue. She reached for the music box. And as she wound the key, she listened for Rick, but the house was silent.
I really, really like this mechanic of using the comic book as the frame through which we play.
She found Rick's crutch and imagined the worst.
There we go. Just follow the spooky blood trail here.
The gang's leader is the infamous Hookman killer, Dr. Carl Hamill, who impaled and then ate his family 10 years ago tonight.
So, real quick before we moved on, I wasn't entirely sure what these were supposed to be, but then later on I realized that this is Molly and this is Calvin. So, her father Sven was essentially creating these totems as another way to memorialize them and make them a grand spectacle to be seen from miles away. We'll come back to that again. This is the table where he cut himself. Alright, so we gotta look for Rick. Out of my way.
The old Finch rattled and grew still.
Oh dear!
Oh.
Rick?
Barb, relax. I was just trying to scare you to help you find your scream.
Well, I'm not scared, Rick. I'm furious.
Then act furious. All I'm getting from you now is that you're hurt and confused and
She threw him out, but she kept a little something to remember him by.
Barb, have you seen my other crutch?
And she was still holding it when she fell asleep watching the late picture show. Hours later...
Barbara! Walter, what's going on up there? Ah! Okay, I'm coming up, but if this is a trick, you're dead, Walter.
Alright. I have no words. I just want to know if these are really comfortable. I've only ever seen these in TV and movies. I've never seen anyone who actually owned them, except for maybe an outdoor swing. But see, we have different parts of the house now. Not as decorated as when we saw it, but still pretty well set up. Definitely not as many books. No bug collection yet. Library is definitely the same.
Island police describe the man as 6 feet tall, with a steel hook for a hand. Residents are urged to lock all doors and windows and notify the police of any suspicious activity.
Barbara turned, saw the hook man, and was speechless. He was quite smashing. And who he was, he couldn't get enough of Barbara.
Okay, Barbara, there's gotta be another way out of here.
Just gotta show you the room before we head on.
That night, she played her part beautifully. Molly's door hadn't been opened in years. The hinges groaned. He wasn't moving, but she sensed the story might not be over yet.
Of course.
The hookman had vanished. She listened for his breathing, but all she heard was...
Alright, pay attention to the artwork of the next couple of frames, specifically of Barbara.
At the door, she heard whispering. It was coming from inside the house.
Oh dear.
You were wonderful. The monsters had come to surprise her. For Barbara, it was a dream come true. Then she saw what kind of monsters they were, and she realized what was about to happen. She was going to be famous. And with her final breath, Barbara Finch gave the performance of her life. I wasn't there myself, but I hear Barbara was magnificent. Poor girl. She had a taste for stardom. But unfortunately, so did her fans. Of course, the police blamed it all on poor Rick, who disappeared the same night. And little Walter, hiding under his bed the whole time. He took it all pretty hard, but that's another story. As for Barbara, tucked inside the music box was all they ever found of her. Her ear. Now that's what I call a real eerie tale.
Edie told me all Barbara wanted was to be remembered, as absurd as that comic was. Maybe what Edie saw was a happy ending.
So the reason I told you to pay attention to the last artwork frames, specifically with the one with Barbara, is because if you look at her memorial, it is almost shot for shot, detail for detail, the same as when she's being greeted by all the monsters, and there's, confetti and all that. So there is a theory posited by Joseph Anderson, which if you haven't, go check out his video on this, it's pretty good, where he theorizes that Edie must have been the one to write this comic, because one, someone in the family would have had to know about the music box, right? If this was a story written about her, say by just some magazine publication, there's no way that they would have known about the music box. So that implies someone within the family had to have known all those details to then write the story, and given Edie's propensity for attention seeking, it is strongly implied that she herself wrote this. So with that, my theory of what actually happened is that she most likely got into a heated argument because, one, that's what the wiki page says, two, that's what makes sense, with her boyfriend trying to scare her and essentially push her to get her screen back on point, and given the sort of foreshadowing with the roller skates, it's likely that they got in a heated argument at the top of the stairs, and he either pushed her or she misstepped and slipped on the skate, fell over the railing, because if you see at the top, the railing has been patched, fell to her death, and then the boyfriend panicked, and I don't know if I believe he actually cut off her ear. He could have. If he did, it was likely because he heard about the whole cannibal killer and just wanted someone quick and easy to blame it on. And if not, then it was just a gory detail that Edie added to make it more sensational, as if to say, oh yes, like she was really killed, by these monsters or by the Hookman, it wasn't just some random heated argument by this nobody, essentially, for something kind of ridiculous. Anyway, that's my theory. So we are going to move on now.
I guess now I know why Mom didn't like me playing with the music box.
Yep. As you see here, it's been patched. And if we go to where...
It's funny. All those times I played with the music box and never found the basement key.
So you'd have to be here. So if his bed was over here, he wouldn't have seen it. But it's possible that Walter did, maybe because he came to the door because he was curious about all the shouting, saw Barbara either fall or get pushed to her death. And then, of course, naturally, because I believe he was only 8 when she died, hid under the bed. I just want to know how that's possible. The infamous table saw. All the little... I guess they're not really stumps, I'm not sure what to call them. Tree plates, whatever. That Edie was using to memorialize all of her children.
Mom said the basement was off limits, unless I wanted another tetanus shot.
And then here, I'm assuming Sven was carving this out for the dragon slide, and then got killed before he could finish it.
I saw Edie sneak down to the basement once, carrying packages. I thought maybe she was hiding presents. It turned out she was hiding a lot more than that.
So, like, I get she's rich, but you know the kind of intense construction project this would have taken?
I remember asking Mom once about where Walter had gone. She said after Barbara died, he got as far away as he could. If there's a pattern in all these stories, I think it's that none of us has gotten very far.
So this is Walter's segment. And much like the comic, Walter vanished, but his bedside radio was still on. And he has essentially been living down here for what we're about to find as 3 decades. However, if you look at the dates, 52 to 2005, so he was 53 when he passed. So if he was down here for 30 years, that means he wasn't living here until he was 23, which implies that he made it to adulthood and just realized he couldn't cope. And given, you know, sort of the times and what he saw, it's likely that his trauma was sort of dismissed as nothing. Because if you sort of read any history about PTSD and trauma, specifically in children, at the time it was thought kids were very resilient and that they would bounce back, and that things, you know, like death or abuse or whatever just didn't affect them that much, which of course we know now is ridiculous. So it's likely that he just had PTSD from watching his sister die or be murdered and couldn't cope with it, so then he just retreated into this bunker because he was just too afraid of the outside world and of dying himself. And if you kind of check out the books he was looking at, a lot of them are about spirituality and death and the beyond and stuff like that. And then here's his calendar, 2005, keeping track of the days. And this to me is sort of the saddest piece of his memorial, is all these postcards of different places that maybe he wanted to see but was just too scared to ever do anything about it.
Goodbye, everyone. I can't believe I've been down here for 30 years. On that first day, after the shaking started, I didn't think I'd survive a week. But after a few days, I settled into a routine. That's what kept me sane. Having a schedule, living for today. I always expected to be dead tomorrow. But if you wait long enough, you get used to anything. Even a monster on the other side of the door starts to feel normal. Almost friendly. And then one day, everything just stopped. Whatever that thing was, it was gone. Maybe it got tired of waiting. Or maybe I just got tired of being afraid. It's been a week now, the longest in 30 years. I'm done waiting. I have to leave while I still can. it's out there somewhere. Whatever killed Barbara and Molly and Calvin. Maybe this is all a mistake. But I need to stop living the same day, even if it kills me. Whatever's out there, I want you to know I'm ready for it. I'm going to appreciate all of it, especially the food. I don't mind if I only have a year left, or a month, or a single week. I'd be happy with one new day. I can already imagine the sun on my face.
Walter died when I was 6. I can't believe my mom never told me he was down here.
Yeah, because if you look at all the birth years of everyone moving forward, he was still alive when pretty much all of them were born. And yet, they never told any of the children that their uncle or their great-uncle, in Edith's case, was just living in an underground bunker because he was agoraphobic and terrified of the outside world. And see, he was born in 52, so say if he was 23, that was 75. So that means he would have, at the very least, met everyone except for... He would have met Don, Gus, not Gregory, but he would have at least known Don and Gus for a little bit before he then moved into the bunker. And as Joseph Anderson also pointed out, you know, what kind of relationship do you have to have with your family where you would rather smash
I'm sure my
through...
mom was trying to protect me.
Where you would rather smash through a wall than simply walk upstairs and talk to your family about what happened. Like, what kind of mental state and relationship do you have to have in order for that to be the preferred choice?
Maybe she was afraid I'd end up like Walter. But if she never told me about an uncle under the house, I can only imagine what else she was hiding. I don't want to make the same mistakes she made. Trying to bury something that's still alive. Now that there's only one of us left, or maybe 2.
So foreshadowing.
I thought it was time I heard the stories for myself. And found out what happened to everyone else. But now I'm worried the stories themselves might be the problem. Maybe we believed so much in a family curse, we made it real.
There's another little memorial for Walter. And that line, maybe we believe so much in the family curse that we made it real, also points to the fact that what their family really is suffering from is a series of generational trauma that they are just unwilling to confront, and would rather wrap their issues up in grand stories than face it and try to heal and fix it.
I don't know if I should even be writing this. I
didn't notice these when I played through it until someone pointed it out. But that is interesting, and that does kind of confirm something we'll find out in one of the other stories.
Maybe it'd be better if all this just died with me. But I thought you should know about your family. And the history you're a part of.
And Edith even acknowledges this herself. You know, maybe it would be better if this did just end with her, and that she just never passed on any of the information. But here she is writing it down because she still feels like that history is important. These are the totems that I had pointed out earlier in Barbara's story that I thought were kind of weird. I didn't really recognize them until you kind of see them here, where you can't really get a good view. We'll get a better view later. But here we have Barbara, who was carved with the crutch still, Calvin on his swing, and he even has the foot cast and everything, and then of course Molly in her sort of anthropomorphic owl-like state with the wings.
Though to be honest, I feel as lost as you probably do right now.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get that in a way when you don't really know your family history and you want to know more, but your family, for whatever reason, just doesn't really want to seem to talk about it. Or maybe they're just forgetting stuff, or they just never think to bring it up. But it is one of those facets of life that is sort of intriguing and fascinating of like, well, where do I come from? And what is it that my family considers important or not so important about their history?
I think the people in these stories believed them, for what that's worth.
There's a sunken house all the way out there, still blinking away.
And when you look at the house, that history of imagination and stubbornness and madness, any of it seems possible.
Yeah, see, it's way too high for any child to reach. I feel like this sort of confirms my theory in that I think he did manage to loop around, but just the swing jerked, fell to his death, right? Because look at that. I mean, and again, like, why would any parent with common sense and decency build a swing so close to a fucking cliff? But again, that kind of points back to the idea that when your family has such a history of trauma and potentially abuse, that they're not forward thinking about safety or tomorrow. It's all about, well, what can we do today? What matters for us today?
I think we've been surrounded by death for so long, we've just gotten used to it.
I'd say so.
What kind of family finishes building a cemetery before starting the house?
And then again supports the death obsession theory.
It's embarrassing for me to admit this, but the pet cemetery made me more uncomfortable than the human one. 3 of the gerbils are mine, and 2 had been my fault.
So someone had pointed out, you know, that if two of them being her fault implies that they died due to accidents, then even the pets are sort of memorialized in a way where Edie is unwilling to sort of let go, that they too are contributing to this idea of the family curse. And, oh, there's Christopher. That they too are contributing to a family curse, and that even their pets can't escape it. Maybe contributing is not the right word, participating in the family curse, I should say.
Sven built the house, but it was Edie who designed the cemetery.
And that supports the idea that it is Edie herself who is more death-obsessed. That she was the one who felt such a need and such a rush to memorialize the family as if she maybe not wanted them to die, but was already anticipating them dying before they should have. I will say I do like the grave designs a lot, and just that each of them are very unique to the person's personality. And see, we have here Edie Finch buried here alongside her husband, and her grave motif is a book with a bunch of letters coming out of it, as if even in death she can't stop, she can't help herself but to tell a story. Oh. We got Walter here, his little motif is a guy in a cave looking out into the sea. Barbara's motif is a star. And then Molly is her as a cat with wings. And then Calvin is his moon and rocket. And Sven, of course, the saw. To show how he was a builder.
I'm sure Odin's monument had been Edie's idea. My mom was always trying to move on, but for Edie, the past never went away.
So this is the monument we saw in the picture of the little slideshow. Here you have Edie and Sven kind of reaching out towards Odin, who...
She could see it poking out of the water at low tide.
Who is still on top of his house as it's going down, looking out into the horizon. Of course, he's pointed towards the actual house at the bottom of the sea. You know, not a care in the world.
Edie said she dreamed about the old house every night. Edie's side was always easier for me to understand. But the older I get, the more I can see where my mom was coming from. Her dad had been pretty strict, but it wasn't enough to save her brothers. She was just trying to do better.
So then you have here these three graves. You have Sam Finch and his two boys, Gregory and Gus, which were Dawn's little brothers. And yeah, I guess that is true now that I'm getting older too, is that it's quite easy as a child to get wrapped up in stories, especially about your own family. You kind of want them to be fantastical and awesome and cool, but then as an adult you realize that that's all they are, is that they're just stories, they're not real. You know, at best it's an elaboration, and at worst it's a lie.
She lost 2 of her brothers, just like I did. I get why she tried so hard to protect us. We never found Milton's body, so my mom insisted we were putting up a monument, not a tombstone. Yep,
so Milton Finch here, his little motif is a hand holding a paintbrush. And he has a birth date, May 19th, 1992, but no death date. So the mom, at least in this moment, like she said, wanting to believe herself that her son was simply missing, not dead, which is very understandable. And then if you don't know who this is, we'll come across him later, Sanjay Kumar. He's not really talked about, but this is the man Dawn married when she left the house originally. And then with this guy, she had the 3 kids, Lewis, Milton, and Edith. And if you don't really understand The Crown, it's okay. We haven't gotten to Lewis's segment yet. But what's most notable to me, though, is that Dawn is not buried here alongside her husband, right? Her husband's buried in the cemetery with the Finch family, and he even kept his last name, Kumar. But his wife, who herself is a Finch, is not buried in the Finch cemetery. So perhaps that was Dawn's last act of rebellion and trying to get away from the family curse and not wanting to be buried alongside the rest of her family who potentially believed that they were cursed.
There's so many things I wish I could ask my mom now. Part of me thinks this is what she wanted all along. For me to come back someday and find everything out for myself.
And maybe that was the point of the mom gifting her the key in the end that specifically unlocked the boxes to the crawl spaces where then she could enter the rooms, and that perhaps the mom didn't want to be telling her the stories through another interpreted lens. Maybe she just wanted her daughter to form her own opinion about what the family did and how they actually were, instead of just hearing
But looking back on it now,
instead of just hearing another story.
if she told me there was going to be so much climbing, I never would have come when I was 22 weeks pregnant.
Yeah, so if you've been wondering why I've been looking down a lot, it's to give people the chance to realize that the character Edith we're playing as is in fact pregnant. No, she's not just fat, she's pregnant. Yep, so we have the garage down, the smaller shed garage down there, the driveway. We are standing on top of the garage right now. About to go into another room here.
I never met Grandpa Sam, but I think he and my mom had a lot in common. They were both pretty intense.
So then this is Grandpa Sam's room.
Instead of hiding from death, Sam seemed to go out of his way to meet it.
So there we have a lot of his film stuff. A mounted deer head. I wish we could have seen a peephole for adult Sam. I think it's interesting is that it's still sealed, right? But for whatever reason we can't access it. It's probably because it was accessed through that third floor door we couldn't get through. I really do like this pose of the cat in attack mode. About to wall up this poor squirrel here. General's General, the Astronaut, Beginner's Barracks, Hunker Down. So a lot of war books. Documenting Danger. Great American Poetry. Can't read some of these. It's a little too dark. I do wish you had the option to have a flashlight for some of these darker segments. But I guess this is just setting the atmosphere. And then here we have a book about hunting. I think anyway. Some mail. And then here, we have a box labeled K with a bunch of stuff in it. And you see here an airline ticket postmarked 2K. And in case you forgot already, Kay was Sam's first wife. But given all the context clues, see here, the emptied out drawers, her stuff in a box, her bedside table drawer. Her side of the bed is nicely neat and made. His isn't because he's still using it. She left. And we're going to see here in a couple segments why she left. Camera. I just want to know why he has an axe just mounted on his bedside, like on the frame there. Like, is that a defense weapon? Did you just run out of space to put it? I don't know. Could have put it up there. Well, then that's over the doorway. I guess it's not very safe either. And then we have here his shrine. He was in the Marines. He was into taxidermy. There's the book there. There's still that frame of him and his brother getting measured. Yep. Another picture here, probably of his twin brother. And then behind us we have a little shadow cabinet here that is locked, so we can't get inside. But his medals. So some generic looking medals here. And then I really want to know if they intended this to be a Medal of Honor, because that's what it looks like it's sort of emulating. That definitely is a Purple Heart, but this specifically, the color and the stars look like they were trying to emulate a Medal of Honor, which is the highest military award you can get. And then his rifle here, engraved S. Finch, so very much into hunting as well. Or maybe
Sam
it was
spent
just
his life shooting photos, but Mom said he got nervous being in front of the camera. I guess we're all afraid of something.
Or maybe it was just a nice gift. So then here we have Sam and Kay, and then that's Dawn on the right, she's the oldest, and then Gus is a year younger than her, and then baby Gregory. But, yeah. 50 to 83, so he was 33. Here we go.
Dawn, I promise, you'll never forget this weekend.
Yes, sir.
These memories are gonna last a lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Am I gonna have to shoot anything?
It's a hunting trip, Dawn. Shooting is strongly encouraged.
What? It's too early, Dad.
Perfect.
It's gonna rain the whole weekend, isn't it?
Odin Finch trail map.
Please just take the damn picture.
Hey, language.
Do Wamish? I can't say what that is. I don't know.
Did you want to get a picture of me or what? I will never forget this weekend, Dad.
That's the spirit. Smile, Dawn. Okay, got it.
Very much a
I'm
teenager.
gonna take some pictures, okay?
Just be careful. That camera's older than you are.
Aw. You're right, Dad. It's starting to clear up. Still freezing, though.
Definitely should not have drunk all that coffee.
Hold still while I take a picture of you.
I definitely won't be moving.
Are you done yet?
Does it sound like I'm done? Nothing quite like being outside. Hey!
That's a keeper.
A little more gas in the tank, I guess. I'm just saying, I'm not always gonna be here, Don. You'll need to remember this stuff, if you want to survive.
I'll be fine, Dad.
You know who else thought he was gonna be fine?
Some guy who died.
Don, I'm being serious.
I know, Dad. You're always serious. Doesn't being out here make you want to chill out?
Well, to tell you the truth, I haven't been out here in 20 years. Last time I was with my brother Calvin. Man, that was a great trip. Your grandpa Sven taught us how to fish, how to build a fire. We found an old logging trail. There were deer everywhere. I bet if I could remember where that trail was, we'd spot a buck for you in no time. Give me a minute to check the map.
Either that stick or that bag.
Let's see.
Dad!
Good eyes, Don. Before you take the shot, let me get a picture of you.
Dad, I...
Just breathe. Turn off your imagination. Focus on your target. Let me get behind you.
Do I have to do this?
Don, you don't have to do anything. But if you want to survive, you'll need to be strong. Now keep yourself squared up, elbows down, like we practiced. Whenever you're ready.
I like how the "whenever you're ready" is both a nod to Dawn character and then us as the player.
Great shot, Don!
Aw.
I'm proud of you, Don. Always remember that, okay?
Dad, it's twitching. I think
That's
it's
totally normal, Don. Just focus on the camera. Try not to think about...
Dad!
Of all these stories, that's the one I wish most that my mom had told me.
Yeah, because if you look at the dates, when he died, Dawn was 15 years old. So imagine, well, some of you may not have to imagine, but imagine being 15 and not only having a parent die, but being there as it happens. And quite literally having the picture of his death, too. You know, it's not just something you have to take from memory. It is forever memorialized in a photo and kept on a shrine. So it's interesting to think about how Sam, you know, as much as he tried to perhaps get away from his family, you know, they said he enlisted. A lot of people who do that do it to get away from difficult family situations. But still, he ended up dying at a fairly young age, falling just like his brother did to his death. Maybe, like she said, the comment, you know, he charged through death. Maybe some of that could have been just his time in the service. And this cane here could have implied that he was injured. Hard to say, you know, without more context clues, but it's a possibility. I believe that it's it for Sam. And we'll get sort of more context clues about how Sam was as a person in the next room here. Bunch of MREs. These are insanely expensive. I don't know if you ever tried to buy a box of these, but they are ridiculously expensive.
After Sam died, my mom and Edie got really close. They'd both lost a lot.
Yeah, and that does make sense. I mean, Sam would have been the last of Edie's children to go, and Sam was obviously Dawn's father. So it would make sense that they would have then found solace in each other, having lost so many family members. Alright, fair warning, this segment here is pretty rough for a lot of people, so please view responsibly. But this is baby Gregory. As you can see by his little shrine and memorial, he was not even 2 years old. Wiki says he was 22 months. This is Sam and Kay's children's bedroom. You have Gus, Dawn, and Gregory. Gregory's segment we're all about to do next. So here you have a divorce contract from Kay Carlisle to Sam Finch. So again, Kay was Sam's first husband. She is serving him divorce papers.
Dear Kay, do you remember the way Gregory used to laugh when he thought he was alone? Like something funny was happening, but only he could see it. I think he saw things the rest of us don't.
Just getting another achievement here.
Watching over, Gregory. It's time to... Hold on, sweetie. Hello? Sam, I told you I don't want to talk right now.
And that would be Kay, Sam's first wife.
What his world was like. He reminded me so much of Calvin. Lost in his imagination. Whatever it was he saw, it sure made him happy.
There we go.
I know how silly it sounds. That I worried about a baby being too happy. But I could feel him slipping away.
Sorry about that, Gregory.
I know you did everything you could. Maybe if I hadn't called that night.
Damn it. Hold on, I don't want Gregory to hear this.
Oh, there's a different window there. Okay. Yeah, but you can see where this is going. So let's just get it over with.
I wish he could have told us about the world he saw. There's so much I don't understand about Gregory, about everything. But I know what happened wasn't your fault. I'm sure he's happy. And he'd want you to be happy too. Good luck, Kay. Love, Sam.
So, Kay left essentially because Gregory died, and as much as Sam is trying to reassure her that it really wasn't her fault, well, it really kind of was. And maybe it was just because, one of those unfortunate moments where, you're, as a parent, you're tired, you're not paying attention as much, but leaving a baby unattended in a bath is probably one of the most dangerous things you can do. And granted, it's a baby, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, where simply just not paying attention can result in an accidental death, and that's what clearly happened here. So yeah, so I was saying earlier with the bathroom thing too, what I find kind of strange is that Gregory's peephole and his little memorial tag is over the bathroom, which is where he died, whereas, most of the other people's, their memorial tag is just over their bedroom, but this is his bedroom, and that's something we don't get to see, which I wish we did. I'm kind of wondering if there was artwork, for them, or on Sam's door, or whatever. Yeah, you can really see the strictness Sam was imposing on his kids, the very boot camp-like style of living. And you can see, Dawn's bed here, she stripped it. We find out later she moved up there, which we'll get to in a second. And then, I wish there was a little more...
my mom ever writing poetry, and yet...
I wish there was a little more context and world building for Gus, because he has clearly a very punk attitude. You can see he put his skateboard over his name as sort of like an act of rebellion. Yeah, unfortunately there's not much. I feel like his segment is sort of the least impactful in terms of what happened. But yeah, we'll get on with it, and I'll kind of give you my theories afterwards. We can see here, is very much into punk, and I think that's spray paint. And his kite, which was probably his favorite toy.
A poem for Gus, who always said the wedding was a bad idea. Our father never hit us kids, at least not very hard, before the day my brother said with teenage disregard that he'd be dead before he'd see a wedding in our yard.
And notice that line, our dad never hit us, at least not very hard. So, I don't know if that was supposed to be literal, but if it is, that definitely points to a theme of abuse, which likely was passed down from Edie and Sven onto their children. But, hard to say without more context clues, but assuming that that line wasn't just a throwaway line, and that was indeed what Sam did to his kids, that points more and more to a very abusive family dynamic within the Finches.
My father made him come, of course, but Gus stood far apart, just flew his kite and bottled up the storm inside his heart. I tried to talk him out of it, but though he'd never met her, we don't need a stepmom, were the words that I now pronounce you husband and wife.
Make this cry. Yeah, so Gus here, not really happy about his mom leaving. Definitely not happy about his dad getting remarried. But here you can see the giant totem that Sven erected to memorialize. First here we have Odin, we have the house, Barbara with the crutch, Calvin on the swing,
when the
and then
time
the
for
anthem.
photos came, Dad ordered him to come here. But Gus declined, and as a sign held up his middle finger.
And then the anthropomorphized Molly with her owl wings. So just another way that even Sven was participating in keeping the past alive, obsessing over the ways in which they died.
The wind picked up, and panicked geese appeared and quickly went. But all the humans did that day was go inside the tent. The rain came down in buckets then, but no one seemed afraid that nature might destroy the tent our dad had crudely made. The thunder sounded much too close and full of angry power, but all my father said to this was, "Make the music louder." I wish that I could truly say I thought about you on that day. Out there on the beach alone, just you, the wind, the sea, and foam. But I didn't, until we found you.
She never talked about him, but Mom told me once if I was a boy, they were going to name me Gus.
So again, looking at the timelines, you have Dawn, who 77 would have been about 11 years old. So she loses Gregory, and then 5 years later would have lost her brother Gus, and then a year after that loses her dad. So very much within the span of a decade, loses her entire family, everyone she ever knew. Because remember, the mom left, then all there was the stepmom, who's never brought up again except for this segment. But yeah, so a lot of people, when they talk about Gus's segment, there's theories that he was fatally hit by the tent, which is what I kind of thought, and then someone said perhaps he was swept out in the ocean and drowned. If you look on the Wikipedia page, what it specifically says was that he was crushed by the giant totem, which actually makes more sense because if you pay attention to the segment there, when we are sort of collecting all the furniture, the last pieces to collect the tent, you actually see the tent hit the side of the totem and the totem starts to fall. I think it's just that we don't see, of course, it actually crushing him to death. But that would make a lot more sense given kind of where it was and how probably unstable it was as well. Yeah, that was Gus. And how elaborate is the house that you have to put an emergency evacuation plan? Like what? House rules: no playing outside without permission, no answering door for strangers, no messes after dark, all chores before dark, respect others. Yeah, how elaborate is your house that you feel like you have to put in an emergency evacuation plan? Boxing bag here for some indoor activity workouts. Oh my god, there's a PA system. Holy crap, like, I never thought about that. Like, I've seen it before, but I never thought about that. Like, he has an actual PA system to make announcements to his kids from his room. Like, Jesus Christ. And then you look here, they have their routines of the schedule. Up by 7:30, breakfast at 8, and then quiet time 11. And they each have, you know, their own chore list, and then their routine: jump rope, jumping jacks, push-ups, crunches. Which, okay, like, the jump rope, the jumping jacks, you know, 100, 150 a day, that's not terrible for a child, at least a teenager. And then the run to the mailbox, at least, maybe that's, you know, 1/4 to a half miles. Doing that every day for a child or a teenager, that's not terrible. You know, that's going to take some time, but that's not terrible. The push-ups and the crunches, though, 100 push-ups and 100 crunches a day, I don't know if you've tried to do that as an adult, but that takes a lot out of you. So this again kind of points to the very strict, regimented, and almost tyrannical aspect that Sam did to try to, if not control his children, at least control what would happen to them. Because in his segment where he's telling Dawn about survival and stuff, you can tell he's very stressed about making sure that she is competent enough to take care of herself when he's gone. As if, again, he's already anticipating his unnatural death.
My mom moved up to the loft after her brothers died.
At the time, it was as far away as she could get.
Religion was another thing my mom never talked about, but I think it helped her a lot after her dad died.
See, and even Dawn sort of builds a memorial shrine to her dad, both of her brothers. And even though, yes, it's done in a religious context, like, it's still a shrine. It's still a way of memorializing them and keeping what happened to them alive. Perhaps in a more celebratory and honoring way than what Edie is doing, but who knows. I kind of wish this had a purpose to it, or she said something, but it's just sort of a fun little thing you can do, so I'm just going to show you guys, but there's nothing else down there for us unless you missed something. That's it. I wish you could get an achievement for that, or there was some commentary about how that's not a good idea in her current state, but, you know. Oh geez, is that? It's like a piece of driftwood. Yeah. Yeah, and then obviously the kite that he was flying when he died.
She spent a summer building houses in Calcutta, where she met my dad, Sanjay.
And there we go, her with a bunch of the children she helped. 10 ways to teach critical thinking. So here, this shows that Dawn went on to become a teacher, traveled the world. Have her high school ID there. A lot of post-it notes. Man, look at that mouse. Look at that computer. Yeah, sort of traces of Dawn's penchant for religion. Oh, these aren't labeled. Okay. So yeah. So this is sort of a glimpse of how her mom was like as a teenager, or at least a young adult. Because like Edith says, you know, she tried to get as far away as she could after both of her brothers passed, but of course, you know, she could only get so far, which is kind of a running theme for the Finch family. Like, even if they try to get away, they only seem to go so far.
My mom moved to India a week after graduation and got a job teaching English. Lewis was born a year later.
Oh god. Oh, they have solar panels. I never noticed that before.
When my dad died, I don't think Mom knew where else to go. I'm sure Edie was happy to have her back. And to see kids in the house again.
So they each have their own little planters up here with their own irrigation system. Huh. Little model people there. I wonder where she got those. And then here, of course, you see Milton's more, interested in painting the pot than he is planting anything. Here, Lewis was trying to plant some herbs. You see all that canned tuna there from his job.
The house had to get a little bigger, but Edie was used to that. And for a while, things were good. Almost normal. But it didn't last.
To Teach to Learn by Dawn Finch. 7 Ways to Create a Fulfilling Classroom. Our family history, fact or fiction? And it looked like Edie was kind of writing everyone's names and trying to figure out what happened to them. Lewis just carved into his desk. And I do like it how, as she said, normal this is looking. Granted they're stacked on top of rooms, stacked on top of a house. But this is more or less just a classroom where Dawn was trying to homeschool them after their father passed. I think what's interesting is that as much as Dawn tried to... Let me get away from that buzzing noise real quick. I think what's interesting, as much as Dawn tried to run away from the family curse, even after her husband ended up dying, she didn't know where else to go, right? And so the only place she could come back to, where she could think, was the house where all this death already occurred. But it was what was familiar to her, and so that's what she came back to. Here, a little poster board project on Odin and Finch. And here's a nice photo of them. So that's Dawn, and then Sanjay, her husband, who she met in India, and then their 3 kids. And I'm kind of more surprised people don't kind of pick up on what happened. I guess it's because he's not really talked about. But her husband, Sanjay, you can see here, relief efforts end in disaster. And you can read the top left paragraph here. It says, hundreds of relief volunteers are injured or dead after the effects of a second earthquake. So her husband and maybe her were relief volunteers. But here it says that, hundreds are dead and injured. And so her husband likely was a victim during that earthquake. And so then after that, Dawn came back here to the only home she ever knew to try to start over again, give her children a sense of normalcy. And most likely, made some money writing this book, so she didn't really have to worry about providing for her children, but still deciding to, Smartypedia, but still deciding to come back here where the family curse was, essentially. But anyway, let's move on.
The beginning of the end was Milton's 10th birthday, when Edie gave him a castle. After Milton disappeared, the only thing he left behind was a room full of paintings.
Alright. So I've been saving my comments on Milton, but essentially, this look, right, this aesthetic of this all white, but then this otherwise completely black object, is straight from The Unfinished Swan, which was Giant Sparrow's first game released in 2012, which I just played the other day, and kind of gives some context as to what might have happened to Milton, but I do support the idea that he did indeed run away, that he didn't mysteriously die, because a lot of these sort of, again, themes and motifs in the story that's told in The Unfinished Swan very much fits along with how Milton may have ended up acting given his family history. Anything back here? Nope. Yeah, but like this all white building, these green vines, you know, the black paint, that frog up there very much is from the Unfinished Swan.
I think Edie was happy to finally have another painter in the family.
This music is from the Unfinished Swan. It's quite beautiful. The sketch style, you know, where it's very plain black lines, but very detailed and simple. You know, this layout. This is part of the map that you go through during the first level. This is the Unfinished Swan. I still can't figure out what this is. It might just be generic forestry. So here he has his kingdom, but he painted some shadow on it. If you played the game, you'll know what I mean by that. His little graffiti tag that you see everywhere in the game to represent himself as a king.
Milton Finch in The Magic Paintbrush.
Oh. There we go. Oh, that is cool, okay. So you can slow it down and kind of go through it page by page. It's a little hard to do with a mouse. I'm using a controller.
I was 4 when Milton disappeared.
Yeah, and so then that rendition of him, right, where he's all cartoony, everyone else has a very realistic look to them. But that cartoony rendition is him as the king that he envisions himself to be, who is the king from the Unfinished Swan, just a younger version of him. Some people I've heard say that the theory is that there is in fact a supernatural element, that that door he painted was in fact his sort of escape. I don't believe that. I think what I believe instead is that he realized, because again most of this is metaphor, he realized he had the ability to do something great with his artwork, and essentially then use that as a way out to be like, well, I don't want to be a part of this family given all the death and everything that's going on. Especially with the potential abuse and all that. So instead, I'm going to just take what I know, which is how to create art, and go elsewhere and create a life for myself
Mom spent
away.
months searching for my brother. Then she sealed the doors.
Yeah, see, even his door handle is like in the painting. I can't read that. Oh well.
Whatever Milton had found in the house, Mom didn't want it getting out.
I think that line's a red herring. I don't think he literally found anything in the house. I think he just realized that the family situation that he was born into was not great and ran away. Oh god, okay. Oh yeah, and there we go. There's a swan up there. So if you haven't played Unfinished Swan, go check it out. That's also very good storytelling too. Not as long as this game, but still very good. Very interesting game mechanics as well. I would not trust that with my life, but story must go on.
Mom definitely blamed Edie, but I think Louis blamed himself. After he graduated, he just spent more and more time in his room. Until Mom got him a job at the cannery. Everyone always told me to stay out of Louis's room. Except Louis.
See, like, they really decided that they're gonna put a whole-ass boat on top of an already rickety house and then build on top of that boat. Like, it... Okay. And then hang stuff off of that rickety structure. Like, okay.
Louis's room smelled very, very familiar. That part of him lived on. He was so proud of being Indian. I think for him, it was a way to be something other than just a Finch.
So he got his diploma, so at least he graduated high school.
Louis and I spent a lot of time playing games together, but he was surprisingly bad at them. He died a lot.
Wonderland Turbo. Oh, it's good time stuff. Very psychedelic. Ah, generic pictures. Okay. The Red King's Dream. And so then if we look at Lewis's books, they're kind of centered around game design, fantasy, game creation, some other generic stuff. Again, just a fair warning, Lewis's segment is pretty heavy, so please view responsibly. I have a lot of comments, especially since I've been reading the wiki page and the inspiration for this. However, during his segment, the commentary is spaced in such a way that it is hard to commentate without talking over it. So I'm going to save my comments until the segment hits a pause.
Dear Mrs. Finch, as Lewis's psychiatrist, I can understand your desire for an explanation. As I see it, the trouble began in January, shortly after we convinced your son to seek treatment for substance abuse. Newly sober, I believe Lewis first noticed the monotony of his daily life. He kept working at the cannery, but he withdrew part of himself. In our sessions, I saw the same behavior. His mind began to wander. I asked him to describe it. He said he started small.
And in case you don't realize this because you've never played it before, this is me doing the fish job and controlling his character.
Imagining a labyrinth. He'd feel his way about. Then something moved. bats,
So if you're not good at multitasking, good luck with this segment.
and toads. And things that have not names. He knew it was all in his head. But he took it very seriously. I had hoped he'd find himself. But he found something more. I worried about him then, daydreaming at the cannery. I spoke with his boss, but he said Lewis had become a model employee, methodical, tireless, focused.
I like how the commentary up until then has been in his daydream segment, and then it moves into his cannery job, as if to point out the disparity between what he's imagining versus what he's actually doing.
Like a whole new Lewis. So I let him go on. I even encouraged him.
Daydream's getting a little bigger
It
here.
seemed very promising at first. He told me he'd made a new friend. On the edge of a city he named Lewis Topia. He built the city up slowly, brick by brick. Then he made musicians. And songs for them to play. He talked about starting a band. And he was always humming something. Every day his imagination grew stronger. He no longer spoke at the cannery. But his chopping was as reliable as ever. Then one day it struck him that all the cheering crowds, even the stones under his feet, were all in his imagination. So he could do whatever he wished. He held an election for mayor. And he won. They begged him to stay, but his mind was already wandering. It became a game for him.
Oh. It's taking up more of the screen.
He'd conquer a city, then immediately push on. New Louisville. St. Louis. He started drifting away from our reality. Minneapolis. Until one day he forgot to go home from the cannery. Even as his mother pleaded with him, part of Lewis kept sailing on.
Like, that to me is insane. Like, how much of maladaptive daydream do you have to do to just forget to go home?
In Lewisburg, he heard rumors of a handsome queen.
here we have a bit of illusion of
was on
choice.
her own quest for
To kill some serpents.
sinister serpents. He followed the sound of her electric sitar. His chase led him to a golden palace east of the sun and west of the moon. Even then, his logic remained sound.
Oh, now it's on the entire screen. Daydream has literally overtaken his life.
He knew the world was all in his imagination. But he was so proud of having created it.
So, in case you've been wondering why the fish keeps appearing like the tuna for us to cut and it opens up the gates, I've always taken it to mean that he realizes that even though he's daydreaming, that what's essentially standing in his way of being able to daydream more is his job. And so that's why when he just does his job, it allows us to progress deeper into his imagination.
In his own eyes, he'd become something greater than a king. For someone who'd never known success in the real world, I think it was overwhelming.
See, and we can't even see the cutover anymore, but we're doing this so mindlessly that we just know what to do at this point.
That the real Lewis was not the one chopping salmon, but the one climbing the steps of a golden palace. My imagination is as real as my body, he told me. It was hard to argue with him.
Yep. So here we are at the cannery. And we are in our kingly garb, as you can see. Looks like the locker room. There's our locker. See, we got our psychedelic posters, takeout menu, generic Game Boy, game station, whatever.
He began to forget the world we know. I think it pained him to remember Lewis, the cannery worker. He began to despise the man with a royal contempt.
That line right there is ripped straight from the coronation of Mr. Thomas Shapp, which I just read the other night. That story pretty much inspired this segment. And in a similar sort of fashion, Mr. Thomas Shapp leads a very sort of mundane, simple life, where he just, I believe if I remember correctly, he just works at a grocery store helping customers, checking them out. But in his mind, he daydreams of his world as something bigger and grander, to the point where he's so distracted that he misses work. And then at the end of the story, you find out that he has been interned in an asylum because he can't stop daydreaming, because he wants to escape the simplicity and the monotony of his everyday life, that he retreats so deep that he needs psychiatric help. And as you can see here, us as Imagination Lewis looking at Ordinary Lewis, not even cutting the fish anymore. He's just going through the motions because he's so distracted. Nope. Well, let's get it over with.
I still thought I could save him. Even after he said he was being crowned king over all the lands of wonder. The palace would be packed with his companions. Including the wise Calico who'd insisted on advising me.
It's the family cat, Molly.
His queen waited, holding his crown. There was only one thing left to do. Bend down his head. I think you know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
My brother was really cool. I wish you could have met him.
So this segment, a lot of people sort of resonate with, including myself. I definitely understand the monotony of a boring, kind of soulless job that you're sort of stuck in, and wanting to do more, but you realize you're just stuck. And so I think in Lewis's case, had he channeled his imagination into something productive, he might have had, or not even had, but created a really good life for himself, but he just didn't. And there's a couple theories as to, well, why would he do that? I always like the detail of when you bend down your head that the last thing you see is that yellow and black caution line that was on the cutter. And in case you have doubts, you look at the locker contents and you see his hat, there is blood on it. So this very much confirms that he did commit suicide just because in his mind, his imagination, anything he envisioned was going to be better than anything he could ever do in the real world. And that was enough to make the decision for him. So this is something with Lewis's segment I very much want to explore, how mentally he would have been predisposed to it. Because like I said before, when it comes to generational trauma, traumatic events, the effects of that can be felt 3 or 4 generations after. And not only that, but people who are progeny of those who suffered from traumatic abuse and the Holocaust survivors are a great example of this. Children of Holocaust survivors are more prone to things like depression and anxiety, even if they themselves have never experienced a traumatic event in their life, but because their parents, grandparents, whatever ancestors experienced such a horrific event, they themselves still feel the effects of that in their genetics. So that is something I would definitely like to explore more, especially with Lewis and his segment. But yeah, very sad overall. I think his mother just tried to do the best she knew, kind of like Sam did with them. And in the end, it still wasn't enough to kind of stop him from believing that all the fantastical stories he had been fed throughout his entire life were going to be better than what he was experiencing in that moment.
from Lewis's funeral, my mom told me to start packing. She waited until the day before we left to tell Edie. I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder. I wish we'd stayed. But I understand why we left. My mom ended up leaving everything behind.
And see here, you have, again, another shrine to her husband. She kept his ID, his relief vest. There's the same photo of him again. And this prayer here on the door that says, "O God, you have called your servants to ventures of which we cannot see the ending, by paths as yet untrodden, through perils unknown. Give us faith to go out with good courage, not knowing where to go, but only that your hand is leading us and your love supporting us, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen." So this prayer sort of indicates that Dawn was still trying to believe that there was a purpose behind everything that was happening. And I think in the end, she sort of gave up hope and that it didn't mean anything. Her aunts and uncles, her brothers, her sons just died. And essentially all of that bottled up sort of feelings and resentment then came pointed straight to Edie, who essentially was facilitating and in some ways enabling the continuation of those stories, because to her, that was more valuable than the actual people that those stories affected. And that's why I said at the beginning that comment of the bomb going off and killing the people but leaving the furniture behind, that to me holds the most significance, because that's essentially what we're seeing. We are essentially seeing the aftermath of a generational traumatic bomb going off, killing every family member in its path, but leaving all the evidence of what happened to them behind for us to figure out. And in a way, for people like Edie, those stories and that evidence is more important than the people themselves. Well, we only have one room left.
What happened that night had been coming for a long time. Maybe it should have come sooner. But it had to end one way or another. All that's left now was to tell you about that last night.
See, we see here little effigies, newspaper origami effigies of everything that happens. You know, here's the house. Again, it's sort of like its own character. You have the little men from Lewis's story, the guards. Then you have the animals, the shark from Molly's vision. You have, you know, the door with a deer going through it for Milton. You have the frog for Gregory. The paintbrush again for Milton. So these little effigies here, I'm not sure if this implies that Edith herself made them, but again, just pointing to the fact that these remembrances of family death are used as decoration, right? Keepsakes, something that is deemed valuable and important. Norwegian folktales. And then before we end here, if you kind of look, oh, it's not really doing it right now, but if you kind of look at the ceiling, you see that her nightlight is a bunch of letters. I don't know why it's not showing up now, it was the other day. But essentially her nightlight is a bunch of letters, including that she herself has a connection to the stories in the same way that Edie does, where she writes out what's happening. And that is what we are experiencing right now. We ourselves, as the player, are experiencing another story.
That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
"To our final night together, and all our final nights apart."
Grandma, you know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are
Edith,
very specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our
I'm
last...
not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
I kind of like how if you watched Edith there, she was just sort of pushing her food around with a chopstick, showing how uncomfortable she was. Good little detail there.
the power had been shut off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles. When my mom sealed the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance. Or that Edie had a key to it.
That thing you're afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories. I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight. We'll have the nursing home send a van for you in the morning, okay?
So before I get to that book here, you see the typewriter, you see all these post-it notes. So it's sort of like Edie is storyboarding, as if she's embellishing, adding to everything that's happened. And her earlier comment about how every Finch family to ever exist is buried in the library, like, she didn't mean that literally. Like, I don't think they're actually buried under the floorboards or anything, but metaphorically to say that they're all buried in the stories, that is the only reason they're kept alive. But History of the Finches by Edie Finch. And if you look at that poster right there, it's a little detail that they added where she was trying to come up with a title. And all the artwork that went on it. Alright, here we go.
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way out. It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground. There'd been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years. God, it smelled awful. You know, I've seen that house every day of my life. But I never thought I'd go back to it. When the fog rolled in, I lost my way. I got turned around. I started seeing things.
Probably obnoxious fumes.
things I'd forgotten had ever existed. But when I saw them, they felt like old friends. That night, a lot of things came back to me. Or maybe I came back to them. Things I can't explain, but that I need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
It's mine.
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip it. Let go! I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car. I never saw Great-Grandma Edie again. The next morning, the van came to pick her up, but she was already gone. After that, we moved around a lot. We both tried to make the best of it. A few years went by. My mom didn't like to talk about it, but she started getting sick a lot. The rest happened pretty quickly. She got better for a while, and then she didn't. And then I was alone. The last Finch left alive. Until I found out about you. I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this. If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is. This journal was supposed to be for you. But now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you and tell you all these stories myself. But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way. This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
But that was a lot. Yeah, I definitely would like to create a more in-depth analysis of what this means. Because I know a lot of people, you know, they point to the death theories, you know, what actually happened, etc. But I think what kind of fascinates me now about doing a second playthrough is sort of why it still propagates, right? The idea of a family curse is intriguing, yes, but to me what's more compelling is that it is, in fact, an allegory for generational trauma and potentially generational abuse, and how the effects of that can still be felt generations after. Regardless, of course, if you try to escape the cycle or not. So, definitely a great story if you ever play it yourself. And I think what's kind of fascinating, I didn't realize this till the other night. I was watching the trailer for What Remains, and it is this really sort of eerie back and forth. One moment, here's another achievement. So, you get an achievement for seeing Johan's name because he's the Unlockables programmer, so that's kind of funny. But if you watch the trailer for What Remains of Edith Finch, it does have a much more eerie view and this very sort of highly stylized and edited. It's really cool looking, but it's essentially it's looking at the rooms in the house as if it's a dollhouse, and it's zooming in and out of the characters' different rooms and different aspects, sort of how they died, you know, sort of giving little teaser hints and stuff. And it's Edith still narrating about the house and what everything means and what happened, etc. But she says at the very end that the thing you should know about stories involving the Finch is that at the end of every story, a Finch dies. And that is exactly what happens in this game, is that it's so easy to forget that we are essentially being told a story because it's done in this sort of meta-layered context, framing device. We are first the boy, you know, on the ferry going to the island, and it's super easy to miss if you're not paying attention. But as we open the diary and we start reading, then we are transported to then Edith herself, getting to the bottom of all the stories and then writing that story to her unborn child, who we then turn into again at the end. So it is very creatively crafted and well done. And like I said in my review, that if you really stop and pay attention, the world building is so spectacular because there's so much you can glean from all the props and the pieces and the little accessories that each of them have to kind of show who they were as a person and what they were like, beyond than, you know, what just you get from the story. But I have a lot of thoughts about this game, about the significance of stories and how it propagates through families. Most specifically, this really makes me think of the book and the movie Big Fish, which sort of in a similar way, Big Fish takes a more positive aspect on storytelling, but it's still the same idea, that the stories are what is valued instead of the reality of what happened, because typically the reality is much more boring, and in the case of What Remains, the stories are much more tragic. Or excuse me, the reality is much more tragic, so of course the stories are much more preferable. But we have one more achievement to get, which is Calvin's. We have to play his segment again.
I knew Grandpa Sam had a twin, and that he never talked about him. I guess my grandpa didn't like history any more than my mom did.
So again, before I start this, like I said before, what I was trying to say was, you know, pay attention to where he's situated. The fact that he's so close to a cliff, the fact that they built a swing set there at all, and all of a sudden the idea of generational trauma and abuse starts to make a lot more sense.
How I Want to Remember My Brother by Sam Finch. The thing I remember is that when he made up his mind, that was it.
I like how you can see Walter's name on his light cast.
My brother said he'd die before he ate another mushroom, and he did. At Barbara's funeral, we swore we'd never be afraid again, and he wasn't. I think Calvin always wanted to fly. But that day, he finally made up his mind to do it. I told him going around was impossible. Maybe if I hadn't said that. washed up. Then maybe he'd still be here, but I doubt it. I think he'd already made up his mind. That's what I want to remember about my brother. The day he made up his mind to fly. And he did.
Calvin's story felt strangely familiar. When I was younger, I remember trying to do the exact same thing.
And it's not impossible. Again, if there's certain things that your ancestors were prone to do or had proclivities to doing, you know, it's not that far-fetched that you, as their progeny, you know, down the line, would also want to do those same things. There we go. Well, that is all achievements. That is the story, What Remains of Edith Finch. I may or may not do a no commentary version because the story itself, the music is very, very beautiful. The artwork is wonderful, very detailed, very colorful, very expressive. So I might do no commentary just so people can enjoy the story itself. But that is it for now. Thank you for watching. Hopefully I will see you in the next video.